We are now, and we are live. Hello and welcome to Developer Insights. I'm David.
And I'm Justin.
Together we are the leads on game development and design here at Codename.
Not only that, we also founded Codename.
So we're going to be your hosts for this episode and every episode.
Because when we're not here, the show doesn't happen.
That checks out. Yep. We are definitely prepared today.
Oh my gosh. Today is our 62nd episode.
And we're going to do a short joke here in order to save time to talk about Extra Life in the next section.
Okay, let's see. Okay, you've really got to hand it to short people because they usually can't reach it. It was a short joke.
Right. Anyway.
Apparently I'm in a trash can. Echo!
What is your voice? We got some issues with sound. Is that what you're saying?
Apparently. I am using the microphone and my speakers. Everything looks fine from my end.
All right. Well, we can adjust that as we go.
Anyway.
Carry on.
Anyway, we will fix the sound, I hope. But once we get that done, we are here to answer development and design questions about Idle Champions.
And of course, if you don't ask any questions, however, you may have to suffer through Justin's one-man reenactment of Codename's Extra Life charity stream.
Yes, that would be a long 24 hours.
Yeah, nobody wants to see that. But we are actually doing a 24-hour Extra Life charity stream that doesn't solely star Justin, starting tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Justin, it's possible there are two mics set there, yeah.
Does that sound better?
We'll have to wait a second for the chat.
Because now I tap on the other mic here, and it doesn't sound like there's sound coming from it.
Yeah, the setup had two mics earlier because Sean and Mars were streaming from there. No, it doesn't sound any better.
But I've turned down the mic.
How about now? Try now.
Try now?
Yeah.
How about now? How about now, everyone? Better. Yep. Okay.
All right. Apologies. Looks like we had an additional audio source there for Justin today. Everything here has been adjusted for our Extra Life stream that's happening tomorrow, and all of the equipment is being used for half a dozen different OBS setups. And so, unfortunately, we came in with a slightly modified microphone arrangement.
Yeah. So speaking of which, we can segue this right back into the script. Tune in to this channel starting tomorrow morning for 24-ish hours of tabletop gaming, video gaming, and virtual gaming. Is virtual gaming what you call VR gaming?
No, I'm pretty sure you call it VR gaming.
Oh, Okay. Anyway, our Extra Life stream is all about raising money for BC Children's Hospital, which provides important services and treatment to nearly 100,000 children in BC every year.
And if you're looking for more of our witless banter, you can tune in to the Founders Q&A, a stream tomorrow at 11 a.m. Pacific time, as well as I'm going to be doing a mixed reality Beat Saber stream from 8 to 9:30 with one of our developers.
Yes, and I will actually be doing a one-man show of a sort. I'll be designing, or redesigning rather, a champion live on stream at 8 a.m. Pacific time on Saturday morning.
And if you want to support our efforts while also getting a cool in-game item, check out the Flapjack the Pirate Flump Familiar on the in-game store right now. All net proceeds from the sales of the Flapjack pack go directly to BC Children's Hospital, and they will until, Justin, is it Monday? Monday morning,
yeah,
I think
it's Monday morning, yeah.
Yeah, so purchase those now if you want those to go to the Extra Life charity.
Yes. And if you're interested in the full schedule, or if you want to know more, check out our Extra Life blog post and fundraising page, which hopefully one of the mods can link in chat very shortly.
Okay. Yeah, and as always, we've pulled forward some questions from the previous show that we did not get to, and we will answer some of those while waiting for new questions to come in. But before we get to those, I've got a few updates on the items that we have flagged to be looked at by the dev team. So without further stalling for time or whatever it is that we're doing right now, let's get started with those. And after that, I will try and adjust Justin's volume because it sounds like the chat is still saying that you're a little bit on the quiet side.
Yeah, I'm just trying to turn it up myself now, but I can't figure out which of these things does that.
Yeah, I think it's probably on this end. They were adjusting a bunch of the settings for Nick's stream.
Turning things. Yeah.
Okay, so as everyone is probably well aware, we are still working on the offline V2 rollout that has up until yesterday only been on Steam. We did find an issue in the rollout, one that unfortunately was something that had snuck in just before the V2 went out that was not part of the V2 but was causing a number of offline progresses just to stall out. And so that's been corrected and rolled out as of yesterday morning. I think they also rolled out to Epic yesterday. So if you're on Epic, you'll also be getting the new V2 and other platforms in the coming weeks. The only thing that's sort of outstanding right now with that is there does seem to be, in some cases, slower offline progress than it was previously. And we think this is because it's running longer in terms of it's not stalling out earlier than it previously would have. So we are looking into that, seeing if there are ways we can make that just overall faster. But otherwise, the straight up stalls seem to be mostly taken care of. And so we'll be tentatively rolling that out on other platforms over the next week. In progress, we have a few items that actually are done, but are still waiting on a branch for QA to take a look at. And that is the better cycling for champions on console. That's when you're switching between champions in the different seats. Previously you hit Y and it switched to the next one, and then Y and switched to the next one, and Y and switched to the next one, and it was kind of slow and chunky. Now this will bring up a menu. You can just scroll down to the one you want and pick that one, which I think is a lot better than the way it was before. We've also put the BUD reading in the center on the console UI. And then the work I guess we have here condensing the buff icons is underway but not complete. So the BUD and the better cycling is ready to go, just needs to be looked at by QA. So we'll be seeing that in a build soon. And the buff icon stuff is underway but not ready to be QA'd yet. Additional items we still have on the list. I feel like I'm reading this list every time, so I can be pushing on getting these items off, so I'm not repeating myself. But we have adding an icon to the portraits of champions that are blocked due to variant rules that have a feat available that could make them unblocked. Skipping animation for moving the chest code chest out, something that speeds that process up. Adding a tooltip to gear that has a max level to indicate progress towards that max level. Adding an option on mobile for a quick return to Area 1. Actually, I was just talking to Nick, and he's working on that next. Additional icons on the quest tracker so that the different types of season quests have a different icon associated with them. Adding recall for familiar. I know Mark is going to look into that. An indicator for an unread changelog, so you know if there's updates waiting for that. A pass on the checking that escape properly closes all menus and dialogues. I know Stefan was working on that yesterday, so I know that's got progress on it as well. And then saving feats with formations. All right, that is that list. Let us get into leftover questions from last week's show. All right, the first question here is from Wandering Bereft. And this question is, will Justin be making sure his character sheets for the redesign stream is clear of spoilers this year? Did you have spoilers last year?
Kind of. I purposefully left some stuff on there for people who were looking for some spoilers, and that was on purpose. So I will be making sure that my character sheet has the proper number of spoilers this year. So tune in at 8 a.m. For. I don't actually know if there'll be spoilers on it. I need to prepare that tomorrow during Extra Life.
Oh dear. Talk about last minute. Okay. I'm just adjusting Justin's volume here a little bit.
Yeah, how does my sound now? Quick brown fox jumps lazy developer. Quick brown fox jumps over the lazy developer.
What's the chat saying?
G in it, so that doesn't really work as well anymore. But yeah, sound now. Stuff 777. I sound fine. Wow, SailNet sounds like my wife.
Wow.
Ouch.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did boost up that channel somewhat. Still quiet. All right, let's try that. All right. Well, hopefully you're coming through louder now.
Okay. Let's get on to some more questions.
Yes. Next question then.
Well
no. Next question here is from N2. That's the name. I'm sticking to it. Are there any plans to have a champions list in the client, either showing unknown champions in each slot or a sortable, searchable champions list, ideally with filters based on stats, patrons, etc.?
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic idea. I think it's something that we'd like to get in. I often kind of talk about how I would love to do some sort of revamp to the collection screen in game, and I think this would be definitely a major part of that, where you'd be able to find the champions, find see their equipment and the descriptions and all that stuff, and also see a bunch of progress bars for how many of the champions you've collected, how many of the champions of a certain type you've collected, maybe champions for each patron that you've collected, stuff like that. So yeah, I think there's a future where this happens. The challenge being we just have to find the time to both design that update to the dialogue and then also implement it. So yeah, it's something we would love to do.
All right. And now the last question that we pulled forward from last week is from Dragavondu, asking, do we really need variants like strength of character? It is really annoying to have to redo your formation constantly to herd your formation through a full 750 zones. Isn't the game supposed to be enjoyable? Wow, ouch. That is
yeah. I mean, I called this one through because I think it's a fair question. I think it's obviously it's a loaded question, but I think that different people find different things enjoyable, and one thing we try to do is provide a lot of different options for different people. I think there are some people who do find redoing your formation every ever so often to change up the characters in it interesting and fun, and at the end of it at least to be very rewarding to have gotten through that challenge. I think there's definitely certainly another set of champions who would just like to be able, or champions players who would just like to be able to set their formation in level 1 and just get to the end, assuming they have enough enough power. So I think that there's something for everyone, and there's a reason that we do kind of the crazier things like that in variants and not just in the base adventures, because then it's the optional kind of thing for completionists to get done, and I think having tough challenges is a really good thing for the game in the long run. I think if you can just idle through everything, it's not really all that interesting for a fairly big subset of the players. So yeah, I think we'll continue to do kind of those more challenging, variants that you have to babysit a little bit more. But we'll also, of course, have a lot of variants where you don't have to do that. So we'll continue to have a split of them. Alrighty. That is all the questions that we highlighted from last week. Let's move on to some of the questions from today.
All right, let me just get back to that. Here we are. All right, first new question of the day is from Dust7777. Dust asks, so about last week's question about if half-price time gates will last even a week after the season ends. Accepted or denied? Since this is the last Dev Insights before Season 1 ends, might as well ask now. Also, could you do the same for Season 2 champions, but instead of a week after the Season 2 ends, also make it so it's a week before Season 2 starts? It took me a week to get started on Season 1 because I didn't have Killick and Ayla last year. Well, that's a pertinent question.
Yeah, I think
got a great answer for it.
Yeah. So yes, I think we will try and get this done. I think this is something that fell off the list, but I'm going to highlight this to make sure that it gets included. I think having those champions, the Season 1 champions, still available in time gates for a little bit after the season ends, and having the Season 2 champions available a little bit before that starts is a good idea to get people, sort of ease people out of Season 1 and then ease people into Season 2. So I think that's a great suggestion, and we will try to make that happen. No guarantees we'll be able to get that to happen for Season 1, for the end of Season 1, but I think we should be able to. But I can't guarantee it at this point because it's not done. But once it's done, then I can guarantee it.
Fair enough.
Let's see. Next question here is from Gelatinous Rubik's Cube. Oh, that sounds like a challenging Rubik's Cube to solve. And their question is, with the quest tracker, once requirements are in the E to the 5 and above range, it's hard to tell if you are actually progressing. Have other ways to display progress been tried that could show your progress more clearly?
Yeah, that's a good question. Requirements in the E5. I mean, I guess it depends on how much of a jump is going on for the individual items. It may be difficult, for sure, to show that. I'd have to see a specific one that I could look at to make sort of decide if there's a better way to show that it's actually progressing. Unless it's
the only way I can think of showing is to have it like flash or increment or show like how much it's incremented in the past X amount of time. Like, I mean, when you've got a bar and it's got, 200 pixels in it, and you've got 50,000 or 100,000 increments to it, obviously you can't have it add a pixel every single time it gets incremented because you run out and you've only done 0.01% of the actual progress. So I think the way that we'd have to do this would be to show that it is progressing in a more explicit way rather than actually show the progression happening.
Yeah, some kind of a flashing portion of it or something.
You just don't want to do too much flashing.
Yes. Okay, next question here. This one is from Dust777 again. And they're asking, can Season 2 Tier 11 have time gate pieces? Either 3 for people without season passes and 6 for those with a season pass, or something else. Maybe you should do the same with everything else instead of completely locking them out for people without season passes. 3 Modron chests for people without a season pass and 6 for those with. Whatever feels right, quotes, to you. More options. I'd rather have 1 Modron chest instead of 6 scrolls.
Yeah, so we are looking at Tier 11 in Season 2. One change that I can say that we are making is just the requirements to unlock Season or Tier 11. We've gotten a lot of feedback from folks who've bought the Season Pass who are frustrated by the fact that they have to buy all the items from Tier 1 to 10 before they can access Tier 11. So one of the things we'll be doing for Season 2 is that you'll only have to buy basically the same number of items that free players have to buy, or non-pass players, I should say, have to buy before you can access Tier 11. So I think in Season 2, we're actually adding an additional free item in every single tier. So there's 4 non-pass items in every level. So you'll have to buy 40 items from the first 10 tiers and then you can access tier 11 and buy the items then. So you won't necessarily, if you buy the pass, you won't necessarily have to buy any skins that you don't want. You won't have to buy any feats or buffs that you don't want before going into tier 10 or tier 11 and purchasing the items there. So we think that'll be better for everyone. And I think based on the sort of the feedback I've seen about tier 11, I think that'll solve a lot of the issues that folks have had. So in addition to that, we are going to be looking at the actual rewards from tier 11 and potentially making changes to the costs or the amount of items in those as well.
Okay. Next question. This is from a user named Black Viper Awareness. And they would like to ask, what metrics do you use to determine which champions or affiliations are included within a season?
That's a good question. So there's a little bit of kind of hand waviness, but we do spend a decent amount of time looking at champion usage. And we try to focus at least a few of the champions on low usage ones. It's not to say that we do all like 5 of the lowest use champions and we just use those. We look at kind of a subset and we look for ones, and we try to match low usage, or we try to. What am I trying to say? We're using low usage as an analog for this is not an interesting champion, or this is not a powerful champion. And whichever one of those we hit for that champion kind of determines how much of a rework we do for the champion. So I think for season 1, we were really looking at the Aerois champions, and there were a couple of them that had fairly low usage. But there were some that had high usage already, right? Like Sentry had very high usage already because they're a speed champion. They were getting used in a lot of speed formations. But champions like Keelik and Lucius had a much lower usage. And so we kind of focused our big updates on the champions with the lower usage. Nova also had a very low usage, but was actually fairly powerful before, but we wanted to restructure her anyway. So those are some of the things we think about usage, and we also think about how old the champion is, like how long ago it was developed and how much or how modern its kit is, because over time, over the past 5 years, we've, much as players have learned how to use the champions, we've also learned more about how to design the champions and how to make them interesting. And so we're focusing a lot on some of the older kits that aren't as interesting as some of the newer things. So that's certainly been a determining factor for seasons 2 and 3. And we've just finished the design on season 3. I'm really excited about it. I think it'll be super fun. And season 2 is going to be fun as well. So hopefully that answered the question in there somewhere.
Okay.
Next question here is from SailNet, who asks a question that is really, I think, better for the founders Q&A tomorrow, but we'll ask it here since you've highlighted it.
Well, we can answer it now, and we can answer it then, and
I can just copy paste it in. So they've asked, what's the most you've ever laughed at this job?
Yeah, that is one of those questions where you put me on the spot, and I'm like, well, I can't remember. What was the funniest thing?
That's why I wanted to ask it, because I can't remember.
There's definitely been times that have come up that have been pretty hilarious. The one that I do think of off the top of my head is the time Peter fell out of his chair. Yes, I can't remember exactly what it was that he was working on, but I know he was working on trying to fix some kind of a bug, right? Like, you remember this, right?
I only remember the time that somebody showed up at the office and threw.
That too.
Cane at Peter.
Peter's getting all of the flack.
Yeah.
But anyway, I know he'd figured something out. He'd been working on this bug. He'd been working on it all day, and we were there a little bit late. I think it was probably getting close, like 6:30, and Peter had fixed it. It worked, and he just threw up his arms and he was like, yes! And then he leaned back, and we're in those office chairs with we've got fairly large office chairs here, and he kind of got to the teetering point, and then over he went, back onto his back. And he was fine. He wasn't hurt. It was, he kind of looked at it, shook it off, but we're just looking at like, that was pretty funny. But I can't think of anything else off the top of my head. What about you?
I cannot think of anything that would qualify as like ridiculously funny. So I'm gonna pass on this question.
Okay.
I'll think about it overnight and see if I can think of anything for tomorrow.
Not the guy that hit Peter with his cane. No, that's
No, that wasn't. That was. I mean, that was. We laughed at that after the fact.
yeah, that's so true. All right. Well, we can save that for tomorrow. Cool. Let's move on to the next question then. From Emote. Emote asks, it seems a bit unfair that area-based champion ultimates don't stay on zone transitions when the enemy ones do. Like Norvin's Poison Cloud in the Forest Trials, for example.
Yeah, I agree. That does seem a bit unfair. I'm actually surprised that is the case, and I feel like that's probably a bug.
That it stays behind.
Yeah, like when you transition areas. That sounds like a bug. So I'm going to highlight that one and see if we can get that someone on that one.
Okay. Yeah, we'll find out if that was intended.
Next question here is from Super Collins, who asks, will Offline Progress 2.0 allow speed champions abilities to function offline?
Yeah, so part of the restructuring in Offline Progress V2 is to allow more accurate calculation of abilities and provide places to actually properly account for where those are happening, which is something that in the previous system, because it had existed before a lot of those abilities existed, it didn't have a proper place to actually account for those, and then they ended up sort of grafted on in weird places, and some worked and most didn't. And so it is my understanding that Mark has provided a place for those to be attached and calculated on, and that we'll just have to go through each champion and add a handler in for them and see what makes sense. So certainly more of them will work, and it is a case where we're going to have to go through them and add each individual one in and add handling for them, because this ends up being a case where a lot of the offline versions of certain abilities end up having to have special handlers for them because they don't work, because it's not processing things in the same way that it would be as if it were actually running through every area, because part of the process that Offline Progress does to not take just forever to complete is that it does try to zero in on how far you can get by jumping forward chunks of areas at a time and then sort of moving backwards when it gets to the point where it can't progress anymore. So that does cause a little bit of a headache for some of the abilities that would build up over time on individual areas, which is why they need individual handlers for them. So certainly the intention is that over time we can get all of them to work a lot better, and certainly better than in V1.
Mm-hmm. I'm supposed to let you know that every time you hit your desk, it sounds like an earthquake.
Like that?
I can't even hear that on my side.
Huh. Yeah.
I don't know. All of these extra life changes, I think, is making for some.
Yeah, and there are people in
changes in
the
settings.
room next to me moving furniture around for extra life. So
That's probably what it is. They're moving all the desks over there.
I mean, we can take a quick look here. What do we got over there? Oh, no, there's no one over there.
I did hear someone talking at some point that I think was outside your office. I think I heard Adam talking.
Yeah.
Anyway, apologies for these slight technical hiccups during this stream. Let's go to the next question, which is actually relevant to Extra Life. Sailnet's asking all the questions, the Extra Life related questions. So they are asking, which song pack are you using for Beat Saber? So we know that we can donate to select the song.
Yeah, so I saw that question and I pinged out to Mark to get the link, and he appears to be AFK, so I haven't gotten that back. We intend to be able to, we'll have listed basically all of the built-in tracks. There are some complications, unfortunately, streaming to Twitch with any kind of a music-based game because of copyright issues. So we will only be using the ones that either are Content ID free or the ones that are the built-in tracks. Basically pack 1 through 5 will be there, and we will have a link soon on our Extra Life page where you will be able to go through and browse and see what songs were going to be available, and you can select those as well as modifiers. And the intention will be that sort of anyone here at CNE who wants to give it a try will be able to do so. We're going to have basically it's 2 up, it's competitive, quote unquote competitive, and so a lot of the staff here will be given it a try and on stream. So you can donate to pick a song and or multiple modifiers for that, for either for them or for Mark and I, who are pretty decent. So
Have you been practicing lately?
I would have loved to get some time in. Unfortunately, not a lot. Let's see. I have another clip there. This is what you're going to be in for if you come in. If you tune in 8 o'clock PST. This is a quick test that Mark and I put together.
Oh.
So it's going to look something like that.
Oh. That's the ultimate spoiler there.
Well, you didn't see who won. Anyway, let's move on. Next question here is from Canelian, and they ask, Lucius' ability descriptions still don't take into account his level upgrades or eye levels. Is this going to be fixed anytime soon?
Yes, that's a great question, and I don't know. I will highlight this guy in yellow, and we'll try and get an answer from Peter on whether or not that's been tasked out or confirmed or what's going on there, because there is definitely something going on there. The ability should be showing a bigger number based on equipment levels and upgrades. So yeah.
We can answer that, sure.
Okay. The next question is from Jabsis, who says, in relation to offline progress, why was offline progress released to everyone, or why is it being released to everyone when it wasn't ready?
Yeah, so I mean, this is a question of what ready is or ready isn't. I think this is something that we had in an offline. We had this in beta with a number of players, a little over 100 players had access to it, and were giving us feedback on the Discord. Not quite 100 players giving us feedback, but over 100 players had access to it. This was something that we ran through that until we weren't getting back reports that were suggesting that things were working or weren't working, at least up to the level that the current progress was. We knew that when we put it out to a larger audience that there was the possibility that some of the things that were that we may see things that weren't reported in that initial beta group. One of the things that I mentioned at the top of the screen, unfortunately, was one of the main issues that we saw that was causing the progress stalls, like just straight out stalls, was something that snuck in on the main branch, not related to offline v2. It was a bug fix, quote unquote. It was something that another developer was hoping to catch some issues with some stalled attacks. And because we didn't push any builds after that to the other platforms, those who got offline v2 also got that bug, which made things a little bit more tricky to diagnose. And then as far as sort of where we're at right now, it does seem that those stalling issues have been taken care of, and we still have some progress issues, or the speed of the progress issues, to still work through. But basically, at the point at which we pushed it out, most of there was no one in the beta channel who was saying that, hey, this isn't ready to go. Although I know someone did mention after we pushed it out, I was like, hey, oh, sorry, I think I hit my mic there. It was saying maybe it wasn't quite ready, but that was sort of a hindsight view on that one. Mark and I discussed it, and we didn't see anything that was sort of a major red flag that was operating worse than the existing system, which was kind of a measure on that one, which I know is not the best measure in the world, but it was a measure. We're working on that because we wanted to get a better system into people's hands as soon as possible. So sort of what our thinking was at the release time for that. And at this point, we're sort of working through just performance to make it faster. But we're also keeping a close eye on reports that we're getting on it to make sure that, things haven't caused any additional sort of actually stall out on the progress. But
yeah, I think one of the kind of remaining issues, as like you said, is the fact that it seems to be taking a little bit longer than the previous version. And so one of the things that I believe we're going to try and sneak in there in a build possibly today or at the very least by Monday is just something to give a visual indication that it is still progressing and that it hasn't frozen at some point when it's calculating offline progress. Because that's certainly one of the reports that we're seeing, is that it's, people will be loading the game and it'll say calculating offline progress. And because it can sometimes take a few minutes, that it'll appear to be just completely frozen, when in reality it's just taken a little bit longer than it used to, and that's something we're trying to fix.
Yeah, no, I spoke with Mark this morning, and what we're going to do is put a message there that tells you what area is currently being worked on, so that you can tell that it's still making progress. And in the case that it's progressing slowly, we'll be able to see that, and you'll be able to report that to us that it's, it's actually says area 26, and then a minute later it says 27. You're like, well, clearly something's broken there, or if it just stalls out, we'll be able to see that as well. And certainly it's a little more, what's the word I'm looking for? Like when you're looking at it and you can actually see into what's happening, you're going to feel more comfortable knowing that it's actually progressing, and that you're not just looking at a progress bar that doesn't look like it's moving.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. It's the progress bar is one of those things. I mean, not to harp on this particular thing for a while, but the progress bar is one of those things where it's very hard to estimate ahead of time how much progress bar we're going to need, and that's why it can kind of jump around a lot, right? It's like an old-fashioned Windows 95 downloading bar where it's just all over the place.
Yeah, Mark was giving me some details on that earlier, and I guess that it takes the total amount of areas that you could progress given the amount of time that you've been away for, and is using that as kind of the maximum size of the bar. But in reality, when it goes to process it, what can happen is that when you end up getting stuck, when you hit a wall, that's when the progress actually stops. And so the progress bar ends up being, larger than it needs to be. So sort of we'll have to put a little bit of thought into a way that makes that progress bar actually continue to move, and not sort of think you're going to get 800 areas when really you've only actually got enough sort of champion formation power to get through 200. So.
Yep. Cool. Okay. Let's move on from that question, because it's giveaway time. It's 2:36. That means we're actually 6 minutes late, and that was because we spent 6 minutes answering that last question. But yeah, it's time for our weekly giveaway of 42 chests of your choice. The way this works, if you haven't been here with us before, is very shortly the giveaway will be announced in chat. You will type in a keyword, and that will enter you into the draw for 42 chests of your choice. It can be any chest in the game except for Glory of Bahamut chests. So you could pick just regular gold chests. You could pick silver chests, I guess, if you want to get less loot. You could pick Modron component chests. Those are my favorite chests. You could go for some new Virgil chests. That could be pretty fun. There's all sorts of chests you could get, but what you need to do is type Extra Life into chat, all one word, no quotes.
Yeah, my personal favorite are the clairvoyant admin chests. That's where you think really hard what you want, and then you click it and it gives you that thing. So ask for those. Those for sure are the most powerful chests in the game.
Yeah, no sarcasm there.
I wouldn't make stuff up, but...
Let's move on to some more questions.
Okay, next question here is from Emote. Any comment on what was going on to suspend a lot of people over the weekend?
Yeah, so this is I'm willing to get into some details here if you guys want to sit back and have some more actual developer insights on this. But so the thing that was happening over the weekend is kind of twofold. Now we have a system in game that is designed to help maintain server performance.
Ooh, tell me more.
And then the way that works is basically if your account generates too much play logging, play history in a certain amount of time, that we will automatically suspend the account for 24 hours. And the numbers on that are pretty high, such that it's really just if you are egregiously scripting the game that you will run into that. Most sort of the scripts that people have that sort of do gem farming, they don't even come close to hitting that limit. But it's there just to catch anything egregious, because when we get too much play history for a certain player, it causes some of the back end stuff to slow down. So what happened was, or I guess what happens is every hour that play history gets kind of cleared out, essentially. And what happened was there was a glitch that was causing some players' accounts to get locked, such that play history didn't automatically get cleared out every hour. And once it wasn't getting cleared out every hour, it was building up and it would build up over multiple days to enough play history that it would trigger that automatic suspension, because the thing would look at it and be like, hey, you've got X lines of play history, and that is more than you should be able to get in an hour, and so we're going to suspend you. But of course, it wasn't what you would get in an hour; it was what you would get in 24 hours or 48 hours. So we were able to eventually on Monday track down the issue that was causing some accounts to get locked, and fix that, and then that caused all of the play history transferring and clearing to function correctly again, which meant that people weren't getting suspended anymore incorrectly. Some people are still getting suspended, but those people are really quite egregious scripters. So that's what was happening with that. It wasn't just opening chests. I know some people were saying, like, I opened chests and I got suspended. And it's like, not really.
All right.
Let's see. Next question. I was talking for a while there. Next question is from Lediath, who asks, can we please have an option to hide all combat text, maybe with a hotkey?
Yeah, so this is something that certainly has been requested in various forms over the... that's weird. So I'm just looking at the odd chat message popping up there. Anyway, it is something that we have had a little bit of a discussion about lately. I know that sort of that text can get egregiously built up on top of itself, depending on the formation and the way the monsters are piling up. I actually personally played with a setting to turn that off to see what it would look like. And I may or may not have left that in the build for people who are looking through that. But there certainly an option to make that disappear would both be a little bit more, make it a little clearer, but also there is probably a performance penalty on that one. That is actually one of the things that can cause a performance penalty, just setting all of that text. Yeah, I do think it's worth looking into that further. The sort of the question around it, the thing that we'll have to work out is just making sure that we do it in a way that has an indication that has been done. One of the things that we often are very careful about is making sure that we don't do something that turns off a setting or a visualization or something in the game, that if you did this by accident, you would be very confused as to why things appeared not to be working anymore. So we'll have to figure out a nice way to indicate that is off, so that players can turn it back on if they accidentally turn that off. That's our one ring problem, as per Bushwhacker, where players put on the one ring and then later open support tickets wondering why their character was not visible. So we do like to be careful about that, but I do think that we could do something about some of those large overlapping combat text, because it's both hard to read, or rather impossible to read in some circumstances, and likely is causing a performance penalty. So yeah. Okay, next question. This one is from Foolish Genius 89. Without saying numbers, did the amount of player base that purchased the Season Pass 1 meet your expectations? Do you consider Seasons a successful design?
Yeah, this is a great question. So I think in general, I think we consider Seasons to be a fairly successful design. I have a number of kind of reservations about it, and basically my reservations are mainly about how long the season lasts for, and sort of how much you have to participate in it in order to sort of get to the top tier. With that said, looking at our numbers, I think most of the people who purchased the pass got to the top tier fairly easily. We were looking at kind of the curve of player level, or of season levels amongst players who both purchased the pass or didn't purchase the pass, and the curve was looking pretty good for where people got. So I think in general, I think it was good. I think there's some parts of it that we're probably going to tweak. We've already talked in this stream about the tweaks we're doing to tier 11. There's some tweaks we're doing to the milestone quests in season 2 and 3 that will hopefully make them a little bit less tedious for some of them. We're looking at all the seasonal quests with a more critical eye to make sure that we don't have any repeats of, say, the complete areas with Aroas stacks over 500 one. So I think there's definitely some smaller things we can do, but I think the season sort of system design in general, I think is working pretty well for keeping people interested in the game and engaging with the game, and giving people really good value for those season passes as well.
Yeah, I 100% agree. It turned out really well. Like, we really like the results we got from it, and we'll definitely be looking at sort of minor things to tweak going forward to sort of fix some of the complaints that people are, not really complaints, but sort of the feedback that we got on it. So
yeah, and I think we're going to be putting out a survey, and I think we can talk about that a little bit, or we can at least tease that after the season ends, we're going to be putting out a survey for players to fill out, where you will be able to give us a little bit of feedback on what you liked about seasons, what you didn't like, and we'll make use of that feedback moving forward to season 2, 3, 4, probably more in season 3, 4, and plus, since we've already pretty much locked season 2, that all of even the tech work for that needs to be locked by. Actually, I think we've already passed the lock date for that, and season 3 is pretty much design locked as well. So we'll definitely start to make more and more use of that feedback in future seasons beyond season 2.
Yeah, and hopefully the survey that goes out will be a little shorter than the one I saw.
Yes, the draft is a little bit long. I don't think anyone wants to answer 90 questions about season 1, so we'll try and shorten that down.
We're gonna trim that down.
Next question is from Miskix, who says, "Good day. Can you please delete or add a setting to turn off the DPS breakdown window? The data it displays is misleading and only causes confusion to players."
I think it's Niscus, just like a meniscus, like that, the liquid and the...
Maybe.
Yeah?
Yeah, we're not doing that stream tomorrow.
It's true. That one did not make the cut.
Things. No. The only option was 5 a.m., and I was like, no, I'm not going to be awake at 5 a.m. for that.
Yeah, so this is an interesting one, right? Because so the display that Niscus is talking about is a sort of a straight up numbers breakdown of the DPS calculation on a character, and so this is one you can pop out if you click on the top left DPS display, and unfortunately, sort of when the game started, a lot of those numbers were accurate. That's kind of the damage that the characters did, but as things progressed and as abilities started having different multiples on things, that very quickly became sort of a base value, but not the actual value of damage that the champions were doing. And so, and that's sort of where Bud evolved from. But I do wonder sort of where the quiz question sort of is stemming from specifically, in the sense that, like, I wonder if this has come up in conversation or on some of the forums or Discord as to sort of confusing...
I think it's definitely a challenge for new players to kind of understand what's going on in that window. I think it's even a challenge for veteran players to understand what's going on in that window, because of the fact that, as you say, that over time the abilities have gotten more complex. It's not just a straight up like, I buff the champion behind me by 100%, or I buff the champion in front of me by 100%. Now it's the thing that really causes issues is stacks. Anything that has stacks that vary over time, it's very difficult for us to tell you exactly what effect that is going to have, because we don't want that DPS number to be constantly jumping around. And if we just kind of calculated, like literally we just took the DPS of every champion, like the current attack damage they would do, divide it by their attack speed, and then add that all up, you'd see a number that just goes flip, 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 and you wouldn't be able to actually tell what your actual DPS was, because every time a monster spawned, a stack might go up, and that would change your DPS. And every time somebody attacked, your DPS would go up or down. And every time, it would just cause a lot of variation in that number. And so, Bud was a solution to that, in that Bud is something that doesn't necessarily change as much over time. It kind of gets set, and then it kind of falls off. the DPS breakdown right now has two columns, one of them being that kind of calculated static DPS, and the other one being a running average. And the running average is, to a certain extent, it is your actual DPS, like what your champions have actually been doing. It obviously it has the issue of if your champions aren't actually hitting anything, like if you're just getting through with click damage, it'll be 0, which can be quite confusing. But definitely, I think there's I think there are some things we can improve about that. It's kind of challenging in terms of what we display there and how we make that useful. I see a lot of people are saying let's put Bud in that location. I think that Bud is something that is potentially it could potentially go there. There could be an option to put it up there, but I don't think it's a good thing for brand new players because it doesn't react when they move the champions around in the formation. And one of the things we try and do with that DPS window or that DPS number is to teach people, like, if you move champions around in your formation, you'll do more or you'll do less damage based on how they're positioned. And so we want to have a number up there that is reactive to the player's actions, but also only reactive to the player's actions, so not changing based off of things that the player isn't controlling, like monsters spawning or being killed or being tanked by champions. And so I think there's multiple things pulling at us in terms of what we put there, and I don't think we've found an easy answer to it yet, but it's something we'll have to continue to look at.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I know the last time that when we actually did end up coming up with sort of Bud as the solution, that was something we spent weeks sort of poring over and trying to figure out what the best way to make sense of that was, so that, you could get an indication of when you were moving your formation around of sort of what changes were improving things and what were actually making things worse. And so it's an imperfect solution, but it's certainly a better solution than just relying on those numbers that, as players even pointed in the chat, are concerned that those numbers, quote unquote, lie. They represent something that's not quite what you're hoping to get or what you're hoping to read.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's a challenge for sure.
Okay.
Next question. I kind of stole that one from you, but I'll ask you the next one here.
This one?
No, that one's just highlighted to go to the devs.
Okay.
This one's from Ammo13. I almost tried to pronounce this one as if the 1 and the 13 was like an I, and I was gonna be like Amoy3, but then I was just like, no, it's Ammo13. Anyway, their question is, can we have the ability to block further notifications of streams in progress if you've already clicked and opened the stream? Obviously, you can't tell if the stream is still open, but you can see if you've already clicked one of the notifications for the current stream.
I thought we did this. I thought if you clicked to open the stream, that after that it wasn't, that we didn't show that one again. I thought that was the case, but clearly that could be not the case if that's the question coming through. Because I think we had I know we had quite a few discussions around how this should work when we initially added that in. I know that. I think we did have it so that if you closed it as in I don't want to see this, when the next one came through it would pop up again, but if you clicked it to like you were going to watch it, that we wouldn't pop up additional ones. But I could be wrong about that. I have to check and see what sort of how that shook out, because I know this was something that was that had quite a bit of discussion around it, and it was something that we were trying to figure out what made the most sense in terms of balancing between being too naggy versus people might miss something that they wanted to see, or if they weren't available at that moment but later wanted to check it out maybe in 30 minutes when we had something that was longer. So I know there was quite a bit of sort of balancing on that. But I thought it was if you had opened it to view the stream that we didn't show it again, but I'd have to check that.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. This one is from Tarjay the Terrible. Will there ever be a community-created champion added to the game roster? On Mars's show, the idea was mused, but I'd be nice to get some sort of insight on this. Also, a Modron champ whose abilities change depending on the core that's equipped was my pitch. Any chance ever seeing that?
Yeah, so I think honestly, I think the idea of doing a community created champion is a really fun one. I don't know that we would necessarily end up putting that in game though. I think it's a fun kind of thought experiment. I think it'd be really fun to have like a stream, like not that we have time, the design team has time, but like this the create a champion live stream that I'm doing on Extra Life. There's always lots of fun to do, and it's fun to interact with the community and see what kind of ideas folks have while designing a champion. But it actually takes, I think, a fair amount of time to really get a champion that fits well within the kind of meta in the game and all the things that we have to consider, and a lot of those things aren't really interesting to talk about. So I think that I think that making community created champions is lots of fun, but I don't know that we would really get one into the game, just because it's there's a lot of other things that are pulling on us to go another direction.
All right. Here's a question. This one is from Canelian, and they're asking, on the ICP dialogue, whenever you claim a chest, it brings you to the chest screen immediately. Many of us save up some tokens and spend them all at once, which means that you go from the banner to the claim chest to the chest screen, back to the chest screen to the banner to the chest claim to the chest screen to the banner. Okay, I'm adding that, but etc. Can you remove the steps that open the chest screen for the next ICP?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think this is something we've done for a lot of rewards where it where we just kind of you just get them without going to the chest screen and having the chest drop down and pop out. And so I'm not 100% sure why we haven't ported that to the ICP dialogue. I don't know if it's a design choice on the marketing team or just
no, I bet it's just an oversight on the way those are credited.
I think so too.
Because it does use a different crediting system to handle that without going through like the the little gift thing that pops up, I think, for those. So
yeah, I don't think it's so I think that's something we can look at, and so I'll highlight this in yellow and see if we can get that. See if there's a reason we can't get that fixed up, and if there's no reason, then we will do that.
Okay.
I think that we're out of time.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Just gonna let's see. Can I actually paste things into the chat? I know I reached out to Mark earlier around the Beat segment that we were going to be doing, and someone was asking what songs were available. We do have a website where you can pick the tracks, and so let's hope I can paste into the chat. If I can't, oh well. So that is that. There it is. Perfect.
No,
so,
you can't. It's just star.
Well,
you are not a moderator, sir. How is your account
I'm supposed to be a moderator. Jay promised me that I was a moderator.
Let me just ban you right now.
All right. Well, no worries.
We'll get someone to paste that in. Anyway, if we didn't...
Does it work now?
Yes.
All right. Awesome. I was going to need that for tomorrow anyway, so got that mod powers.
All right. So if we didn't get to your question this week, don't worry. You'll have another opportunity. You'll have a couple more opportunities, actually. We'll be live again at this same time next week. I know, though, it is U.S. Thanksgiving, but we'll be live again anyway because we're Canadian, so we'll be here for those of you who aren't eating turkey with family. And, of course, we'll also be live again tomorrow at 11 a.m. on our Extra Life stream. Answering questions, more general questions, really about Codename than specifically about Idle Champions. But tune in anyway for that because I think it'll be a lot of fun. Before we sign off from this show, though, I'd like to thank our tireless mods. Today, I believe it was still Mars and Martin, though Mars is sitting right over there, which is weird for me and probably weird for him too. And those are the two folks who oh, he's waving at me. Who take your questions, put them into our questions doc, and generally help keep things awesome. So thanks to both of you.
And of course, thanks to all of you for hanging out, watching the stream, asking such great questions, and for enjoying the game. Because without you, no one here would get to do what we do.
We like what we do.
All right. It's good enough. Have a great afternoon, everyone.
Bye. Let's be quiet and see if we can hear any of the ghosts over there.
You didn't prepare a joke, did you?
No, they're not talking. I was hoping someone outside the room would say something funny. Maybe that was too big of a hope.
All right. Tune in tomorrow, everyone.
Bye.